Hello, hello, welcome. I think we're going to wait about 30 more seconds or so just to see if we have any other last minute people sign in, and then we'll get started. All right, let's do this. I like to start off the job search presentation with kind of some yucky stuff just to get it all out there. I like to start talking about unemployment rates. The numbers are in for February, and we're continuing to see a downward trend, which I think is a good thing. We're looking at 6.2% for February of 2021, down from 6.3% last month. However, it's been a constant downward motion since that peak from COVID back in April of 2020, where we were seeing upwards of 14, 15%. Pre-COVID unemployment rate was fairly steady at around 4% from October of 2018 through October 2020. You can see from that chart down there, it hung pretty steady right along that 4% mark. And then boom, we jumped up really high in April, right as the pandemic was really in its peak and people weren't sure what was going to happen and whether we would have to continue the quarantine and all that. So those were the highest numbers, but our chart is showing that continued downward spiral. So that is a good thing. However, with the number being a little bit higher than what we were used to at 4, it's important to know that this means there is more competition for the jobs that are posted and the jobs that are available. And also we're seeing different types of positions that are available now. The hospitality rate is really hurting. Travel is really hurting. Restaurants, retail, those types of things aren't really as robust as they used to be, but we're seeing an increase obviously in healthcare and tech and new positions like delivery positions and those types of retail gigs. So the jobs themselves have fluctuated a little bit as well. But again, knowing that the unemployment rate's a little bit higher, you want to be sure that you're putting your best foot forward so you can really help boost your own chances with this job search. I share this stuff simply because I think it's helpful of being aware of the data and the reality of the world of work that we're currently in. I think that can really be helpful when managing job seekers' expectations. So I don't like to necessarily start off with kind of bad news, but I think it is helpful to be aware of that. So now let's get started with job search strategies. If you could, using your chat function, when I say job search, what word or what phrase comes to mind for you? We'll just take a second here. If no one has anything to share, that's totally cool. Looks like something popped up. Opportunities, interviews, stress, all of these things are very good. We'll talk about all of this stuff in our presentation today. Not so much combating the stress that comes with it, but accepting that it is a stressful situation. We'll certainly talk a little bit about interviewing, and we will definitely explore different opportunities that are out there and how we can find them and apply for them and hopefully interview for them. So that's great. The job search process, I find, is a job in and of itself. It's time consuming. As somebody mentioned, it's very stressful. You've really got to make sure that you're allotting the time to spend on this job search. It's not just something that you can kind of half-heartedly contend with and expect to get a job. When you're starting your job search, I like to look at it as kind of 3 main areas. You've got your preparation phase, the actual application process where you're completing applications, you're sending out resumes, and then that interviewing stage. So we're going to break those areas down into different subsets and tackle each one. So first, with preparation. When I think preparation for job search, I obviously think resume writing. I think cover letters, I think references, I think of my online presence and how I'm presented to folks in that online realm. So LinkedIn comes to mind. And then finding those job postings that are out there. There are so many opportunities that exist. How do we find them? So that's what I think of when I start preparing for a job search. And we're going to start discussing resumes. Now, this session could be an hour-long session in and of itself when we talk resumes. So we're not going to get into detail at all with this, other than to say that your resume is a marketing tool. It's how you're going to present yourself to a potential employer or to a recruiter. So it's focusing on your skills, your work experience, your education. It's a hiring manager's first introduction to who you are and what you have to offer. It's important that you're concise when you're writing your resumes. You don't want to go on with page after page of flowery descriptions of every single thing that you've ever done on the job. You want to focus on accomplishments. You want to focus on the most important things, because when a recruiter gets your resume, they tend to give it 10, 15 seconds of a glance. So it's a little disheartening to think that all this work that you're putting into the document, it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But knowing that is going to allow you, again, to focus, be concise, and hit those top accomplishments, those top skill sets, the education that you have, and the experience that you have, and highlight it all right there. So when they're glancing through, they can say, yep, they check this box, this box, this box. And we're going to move them into the next step, whatever that may be, whether it's calling you in for an interview or doing a background check or whatever the case may be. So that's all we're going to say about resumes at this point. References I wanted to bring up as well, simply because a lot of times people will start the application process having not thought about who they want to list as a reference. And then they're scrambling at the time trying to come up with names and titles and email addresses and phone numbers and stuff to include. So when you're starting this preparation process, think about previous supervisors, managers, coworkers, peers, coaches, faculty members if you're a student, people who can attest to your work ethic, how you contribute on the job, your critical thinking skills, your communication skills, that kind of stuff. So you want to be sure you're using professional references. Don't put your mom, don't put your Aunt Vicky, professional references. The key data that you want to find or to have on these folks before you start this process again is their name, their title, phone number, and email address at a minimum. Typically, on an application or on a reference page, that phone number and email address are the most important things to the recruiters. They're not very likely to send a letter to someone for a reference. However, if you can get their current work address and that information, that will be great as well. One last word on references, and then we'll move on. Be sure you ask these people if they're willing to be a reference for you. Don't just assume that they are going to provide you with a glowing recommendation. When you reach out to them and you ask their permission, it's often helpful to provide them with a copy of your updated resume as well. Just as an example, if you're a student or a recent graduate and you have a really good relationship with one of your faculty members, they know you as a student. They know how you perform in the classroom. They may not have any idea about the number of hours you volunteer in the community or what type of work experience you have or that type of thing. So providing your reference with your resume, it gives them a better, a full rounded picture of who you are and what you have to offer. And that just helps them when they're putting together either a letter or comments that they can make to the recruiters. One other note is that it's not necessary to include references available upon request on your resume. That's kind of an assumed thing, and that wastes valuable space on your resume that you can use to focus on your skills and your experience. Okay, moving on to our first poll.
There is a quick question about what the maximum number of pages of your resume should be.
That's kind of an it depends question. Typically, the rule of thumb is shoot for a page if you can. However, if you have an abundance of work experience, 2 pages is fine. If you're applying for a federal position, kind of the sky's the limit on those because those resumes are crazy. Same thing with academia and education. Those get a little bit lengthy. So let's say 1 page is ideal. 2 if you have a lot of experience, and then it depends based on your intended field and that sort of thing. Does that help? I know it's kind of clear as mud, but that's unfortunately the general guidelines now. So the poll we put up is, do you have a LinkedIn account? And it looks like we've got all of the votes counted. And I'll go ahead and stop that and share. We're at 50-50. So yeah, some do, some don't. Fortunately, no one said what is LinkedIn. So at least everyone is somewhat familiar with it. So let's jump ahead and talk about LinkedIn. I'm going to say talk about LinkedIn briefly, but last time I did this, it ended up being a mini LinkedIn workshop. So I'll try and stay on task here and cruise through this. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network that you can find online. So it is a social network. So it's similar to a Snapchat, a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram account. However, the intended purpose is for professional networking. So this isn't where you're going to get on and post pictures of your spring break trip or share pictures of your new puppy or your new kitten. It's where you share accomplishments on the job or credentials that you've just acquired or a degree that you've completed or a promotion that you've gotten. So it's that type of networking and that type of social promotion, if you will. There's also a component on LinkedIn where you can search for jobs. So this is going to be one of the first sources that we'll talk about for job opportunities. LinkedIn can also be used to connect with professionals in your field and to strengthen professional relationships that you already have. It's a good idea to connect to, I believe it allows you to connect to your email account and to your Facebook accounts, and it'll kind of pull from there and suggest folks for you to connect with on LinkedIn. So that's a good idea to do to get started. But then you want to go one step further and say, who are some professionals in, let's say, the Quad City area who happen to be in the finance industry, if that's what you're interested in, and see who you can come up with, and then try and reach out to those people and say, I'm a new professional, or I'm a career changer, or I've got 10 years experience in this field and I'm interested in your organization. Can we connect on LinkedIn? And extend invitations that way. So again, you're going to keep building and extending your professional network on this service or on this platform. LinkedIn also has a really cool feature called LinkedIn Learning, and that is going to provide training for you on different skill sets that you might need to succeed in your career. I haven't spent a lot of time on LinkedIn Learning myself, but from what I've seen, there's literally anything under the sun you could imagine. So let's say you want to improve on your Excel spreadsheet skills. You're okay with it, but you're not a pro. There's Excel training on here. If you struggle with time management, there's time management training. There's very specific or industry specific training, and there's more broad, just like life skills training. So check out LinkedIn Learning and see what you can find on there and see how you can improve your skills to offer to employers as well. LinkedIn is accessible on a desktop computer, laptop computer, app. So it's very portable, very easy to use. A completed LinkedIn profile can help you connect with opportunities and allows you to showcase your professional story through your experience, skills, and your education. So essentially, you can think of your LinkedIn account as your online resume. It also provides a place for employers to check you out before they call you for an interview. So let's be honest, we are in a digital society. Folks are going to vet you, for lack of a better word, when they're thinking of hiring you and bringing you into their organization. So they'll do a Google search, they'll see what comes up for you. I would suggest for all job seekers, is to Google yourself, see what comes up, and give it what I call the mom test. Make sure that there's nothing that kind of raises eyebrows or raises any red flags. If there is something that might raise a flag to an employer, just be sure that you're prepared and you're able to explain whatever it may be. Maybe it was a speeding ticket and it shows up on the police blotter or something like that. But Google yourself, know what to expect, and clean up what's out there. And when I say clean up what's out there, I'm talking about your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram. Set those accounts to private, so that'll limit what employers have access to. They won't be able to see as many of your photos and your family members and all that stuff. Also check to see, what types of groups that you follow, what types of posts you may have commented on. If there's something that's either extremely right-leaning or extremely left-leaning, or just something, again, that's going to raise a red flag to an employer, try and close out of that, try and block it, try and make it private so they're not going to see those things. Let's see, next on LinkedIn, I can't get my arrow to work. There we go. When you're actually creating your account, I know one of you already has one. A couple people did not have an account set up yet. When you first make it on LinkedIn, or when you first create the account, it's going to assign you a URL that says something like your name and a string of numbers. So for me, it would be linkedin.com/Angela Striegel 4767259. Not something really easy to remember, not something that's quick to type in and that sort of thing. So my first recommendation would be to go in and personalize that URL. You can do that under your settings, your profile settings. Try and do something where it's just first name, last name, or you can throw in your credentials. Like the example we have here is Bob Smith RN, or if you have an MBA, put MBA at the end, something like that. If Bob Smith is already taken, try a middle initial, but just something that makes it smaller, makes it personalized, and keeps it professional. So don't do Bob Smith, #1 NASCAR fan, but Bob Smith accountant, something like that. Next would be the headshot. Be sure you include a picture. There's studies, I don't have statistics written down here, but there's studies that show that accounts with pictures get more hits and get more clicks and links and whatnot. So have a photo on there. I say professional headshot on this slide, but I do not mean that you have to go out and hire a professional photographer to take your photo for LinkedIn, but try and make sure that, it's a headshot. So it's shoulders up. There's nothing distracting in your background. You're wearing professional clothes. You've got a nice neutral expression on your face, that kind of thing. So just make sure that it's something that you would not be embarrassed of showing with or sharing with a potential employer or recruiter. So keep it professional looking. It allows you to include a short headline detailing your experience. If you spend some time on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of people get really creative and have some fun with these headlines and put fun stuff that still make it professional and related to the jobs that you're trying to get or the experience that you have. So I don't remember the character length, but it is kind of short for that headline. But do spend some time thinking about that and how you want to promote yourself in terms of highlighting what it is that you're looking for and what you have to offer to an employer. Then the next step is what they call a summary. And this is where you can go into a little bit more detail about your experience. So your headline is just a teaser, and then the summary allows you to expand a little bit more. The cool thing about the summary is when you're working on the summary statement, not only is it applicable for your LinkedIn summary, it's also a good summary that you could use for your resume. And it's also a helpful response to kind of have in your back pocket for an interview when you get that question, tell me about yourself. So that's the kind of things that you want to think of when you're putting your summary together for LinkedIn. A couple of other things here, and this already is turning into a LinkedIn dissertation, so I apologize. There's a possibility or an opportunity for you to join or follow groups that are related to your industry. So for instance, I work in career services. Some of the groups that I find or that I follow are the National Association of Colleges and Employers. I follow the Society for Human Resource Management. I follow the Association for Training and Development. So all of these are professional associations, and they share articles and they do surveys and they have people that share relevant industry information that's helpful for me in my job. So it's really important for me to check in periodically and see what's going on so I can stay in the loop. You can also follow employers that you are interested in working for, or employers who are in the geographic area where you want to work. So here in the Quad Cities, Deere is a big employer, the Arsenal is a big employer, Genesis, Trinity, Unity Healthcare, all those places. You may want to follow them and see what types of things they've got going on in the news and what new developments they have and what trends that they're posting and sharing about. We already mentioned about connecting with professionals. One tip is, again, depending on what your industry is, I'll use marketing. You can search in the top search bar of LinkedIn for hashtag marketing recruiters, and then you'll get lists of folks who recruit for the marketing industry. So you can, again, use that to try and make connections. Michael just shared her headline. I am a thoughtful visionary who gives my all to transform people's passions to concrete actions. I love it. I need to update mine because I don't think mine is good at all. I think I have something like career services professional, marketing experience, and something else that's really junky. So
I
that's
I went to a workshop where they said that it was good to create a personal mission statement that you kind of put as your headline there.
oh,
So I think mine was more kind of career capsulating before, and then I
yep.
changed it to that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thinking about a personal mission statement and using that as your headline. That's a really great tip. And I think I might try and employ that when I have some free time. So thank you for sharing. You can also follow hashtags. And again, using my own job as an example, I would follow job opportunities. I would follow hashtag career fairs, hashtag virtual career fairs, hashtag career services, hashtag community college. So all of those things will help influence what information and what articles and whatnot is focused or highlighted on your news feed in LinkedIn. So someone over in California could be writing an article about virtual career fairs and community colleges. And if they put those two hashtags in it, I'm going to see it on my feed because I follow those feeds. So it's really good, again, to see the depth and the breadth of the information that's out there just by following certain groups, joining groups, and following hashtags. Really helpful. So that is my LinkedIn lecture for today. Let's move on to job postings, where to look. Of course, we already talked about LinkedIn being one source. You'll find the internet is a endless wealth of information when it comes to job postings. Indeed.com is probably the most used job posting or job board. Monster.com probably led the way many, many years ago. That was probably the first big one, but it is still strong and still lots of great opportunities on there. Another thing that I find is useful is just searching for what you want in Google. So retail jobs in Bettendorf, Iowa, it's going to show you what's listed on Indeed. It's going to show you what's listed on Monster, and it's going to show you what's listed on some of these smaller job boards. So you're going to get a lot of options just by doing a generic Google search. The next site I have there, glassdoor.com. There are job postings there, but it's an also really good source for employer research because it's a place where past employees and current employees can go and kind of give reviews about their employers. Overall, it's pretty honest, straightforward information. Every once in a while, you're going to run across that disgruntled employee that was probably fired and is getting on Glassdoor and just ranting and bashing the company. But those are pretty easy to figure out. Overall, from what I've seen in my experience there, it's pretty decent information in terms of company culture, what training is like, and that sort of information. So if you're at the phase where you want to learn more about the organization that you're applying for, give Glassdoor a try because it's a pretty cool tool. The next bullet point sounds kind of old school, but it still exists and it's still a good source to check out. Classifieds. I live in Eldridge, it's a small town. We get the North Scott Press. Every Wednesday when the paper comes, just for kicks, I flip through and there are always classified ads for job postings in our little area in North Scott County. So we also get Quad City Times, and I check every Sunday, and there's job listings there. The classified page or the classified section of the paper is also a really good source to find job fairs in the area. Those will be advertised in that section or the business section of the paper too. So job fairs is the next thing. In-person events, kind of on the downside still right now because of social distancing requirements and all that, but there has been an uptick in virtual fairs and virtual events. So keep your eyes peeled for those too and participate in those when possible. Placement agencies, job placement agencies are a good place to go for assistance as well. I listed a handful of agencies there on the slide, but there's tons here in the Quad Cities that can help. Some agencies are kind of industry focused, like Account Temps, for instance, is more accounting, bookkeeping, finance type positions. There are other agencies that post or focus more on the trades, construction gigs, forklift, that kind of stuff. So you'll just have to kind of feel around and check them out and see which is the best fit for you, but that might be an opportunity as well. Networking is a really good source for finding positions that may not be posted yet, or those positions that may be in development in the companies and have not been shared online. It's a really good way to talk to folks and learn what's going on in their organizations and see if they've got connections in the departments that you may be interested in working for. In one of the handouts that was sent out to you, I believe it was yesterday, maybe it was this morning, I included a networking handout. And honestly, it seems kind of silly, but I find that it's a useful exercise just to sit down and look at that list and take some time to jot down some names and make some notes and put contact information where you can. So on that handout, you'll see that we start with family, we go to friends. You can break your friends group down into your current friends, work friends, high school friends, college friends, and really see that list start to grow. Then think about your neighbors, and then think about your colleagues at work, either in your current job or past jobs. Think about vendors that maybe you've worked with. Think about the professional organizations that you've been associated with, or groups that you volunteer with. Then you can think about church, and are you on the local softball team? Who do you play with? Are you involved with a poker night or a bunco night or something like that? Who are those people? So think about all the facets of your life and all these people that you make connections with on a daily basis, and jot their names down, what they do, phone number, an email address or something. And then on times when you're wanting to work on your job search, but maybe you're just kind of hitting the brick wall, you're not seeing new job postings come through, there's really nothing that you can apply for right now, jump over to this networking sheet and email 4 or 5 people and say, hey, just wanted to touch base, reach out. I'm looking for work. I'm looking for opportunities. Do you happen to know anybody at your organization who is in the marketing department, the finance department, hospitality, whatever the case may be, and work that connection, work those networking contacts that you have. Last 2 places we'll talk about to look for job postings would be your state employment offices. I have the Ohio and Illinois websites down there. And then the last place would be going directly to the source. If there's a company that you would like to work for, 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, they have an employment site on their webpage. So go to the webpage, look for careers or employment, and see what opportunities they have and apply directly through their site. All right. Let's see. Now we're kind of moving into the application process of the job search strategy. Remember, I talked about preparation, application, and interviewing as being the 3 main steps. So now we've found all of these positions, and now we're going to start applying. So how do I know which jobs to apply for? There could be hundreds out there. Do I apply for all 277 that I found? Probably not the best strategy to take. You probably want to spend some time filtering and finding the positions that are the best fit for your interests and your goals. So that first bullet is filter as much as possible. When you're on that search engine, you're on Indeed.com, it allows you to search for specific job titles. It allows you to search by location, by part-time, full-time, seasonal, internship, that sort of thing. So look at those filters and try and get as specific as possible. And usually that's going to narrow down your opportunities or your options significantly. Sometimes it narrows it down too much, and you're like, you go from 270 some to 3, and you're like, ugh. So you want to broaden your search a little bit more, but play with those filters, and that'll help you focus in on the positions that are the best fit for you. Now, once you get those positions narrowed down, you want to make sure you're spending the time and reading through the skills and the requirements in those job descriptions thoroughly. If you meet 70% or more of the requirements, go ahead and consider applying for them. If you don't meet any of those requirements, even though it's the job that you want to do, don't waste your time. if you've got 50% or more of the requirements, go for it, give it a shot. But you need to be realistic and you need to understand what it is that they're looking for. And if you check some or most of the boxes, take that as the green light and go for it. Review those job duties. Try and get a feel for what you're going to be doing day in and day out. Does it match your skill set? Does it match your goals? Is it going to be a good fit? Are you going to be happy in the job? A lot of times they don't go into too specific detail when it's talking about job duties. So again, that's when networking can come into play. That's when Glassdoor can be helpful. You can go to those types of sources and try and get more information and see if you can determine if it's going to be a good fit for you. Next would be taking the location into consideration. Is it far enough away where you may have to move? Is the commute, an hour or more? Are you willing to do that? I know a lot of people who love those 1 hour commutes because it gives them time to kind of decompress at the end of the day, and it gives them time to think things through at the beginning of the day. Personally, that's not me. I want to be 30 minutes or less. Too much other stuff I want to focus on. So for me, a long commute is not ideal, but for others, it's totally fine. Another thing to think of when it comes to location, if you rely on public transportation, you need to map it out. So from where you are to where you need to be, how long is it going to take you to get there? It may not be that far in terms of miles, but in terms of bus stops and that route, it may just be unreasonable to think about applying for that. So factor that in as well. And the last thing that I did not list on here, which I forgot to do from last time, is look at salary. Sometimes salary isn't given in job postings, but when it is, does that salary work for you? Is it fair? And how do you know if it's a fair salary? There's a couple of websites that you can go to. onetonline.org is the first. That can give you some more regional and local information. You can look based on state and then quad cities and other metropolitan areas. So that's a helpful site to check out. And then salary.com is another simple one that you can go. But just make sure that the salary works with your budget and works with your financial needs too. So all of those things can help you determine which ones you want to apply for. And then I don't know about you guys, but I work better when I have a goal set for myself. So when I'm in the midst of a job search, I like to set a goal of, X number of job applications going out each week. Based on what I've read and what I've talked to other folks, 10 to 15 applications out a week is a good goal. When you break that down per day, that's 2 or 3 applications a day. So that's manageable. What you want to be sure that you're doing when you're applying for jobs is have a good system in place to track these applications. There's going to be times when the same job is going to come up week after week after week in Indeed and in Monster and that sort of thing. You'll look at it and think, did I apply for that one? You'll want to have a system in place where you can go back and say, yes, I did apply for that one on February 12th. So I don't need to submit an application again. So have some system, whatever works best for you, where you can track the following information. I did send out an Excel spreadsheet. I didn't, Michael did, to you guys, again, last night or this morning. So you can check that out and see if that would work for you. I did not create it. I found it online and thought it was great and didn't see any need to recreate the wheel. So I'm just sharing the love there. But the spreadsheet includes the company name, the contact of, the name of the person who you send your resume to or who you sent the application to, email information, the date that you applied, application summary. By that, we just mean, I had to submit an application. I had to submit a resume. I had to submit 3 references, a cover letter, and college transcripts. So, just track what it is that you provided to them. So that way you'll know what information they already have, what you may need to be prepared to provide for future steps, etc. You can track when they contact you for an interview, when your interviews are scheduled, what dates, locations, whether it's Zoom, that kind of stuff, and then follow-up notes. So all of these things are going to be important when you're tracking. That's why I say it's important to come up with a system, whatever system works best for you, so you can keep tabs on all of these things. There are apps and there are websites where you can do it all electronically. So if you're a tech savvy person and you really like to have everything accessible through your phone or through your laptop or your tablet or whatever, I just put a couple of examples on there, but there's one called Hunter, no E, Job Track, Job Hero. Some of them are free or have free versions. Some of them have a small fee associated with them. So you're more than welcome to check those out. If you just get by with a spiral bound notebook and you can keep your notes in that too, go ahead and do that as well. Sorry, my phone just rang. What's best for you? No, I'm so sorry. Next is what to expect when you're applying for a job. So know that a single job application can take hours to complete. They don't normally, but there are some that are just huge time sucks. So make sure that you've blocked off enough time to sit down and try and complete the application in one setting. So don't just allow yourself 15 minutes every day to try and knock out job applications. That's likely not going to be sufficient. Most job sites will allow you to save a partially completed application or a partially completed profile and then come back to it when you have time to complete it. But that's not a universal, and you shouldn't expect or anticipate that they will allow you to do that. So make sure that you've got enough time blocked off when you do sit down to work on an application. Most job listings then, after you do or you start that application process, they're going to ask that you upload your resume and perhaps a cover letter and your reference page as documents. And then they're also going to ask you to go back in and retype all of that into text boxes on their online application form. So a time saver there would be to be sure that you've saved your resume as a Word document, either in place of a PDF or in addition to a PDF, because you can cut and paste from Word into these application forms. So that just saves you some time from having to go in and manually retype. Last note on job applications is that you'll often see an EEOC set of questions, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. These are just questions that deal with protected statuses. So race, gender, disabilities, veteran status, that kind of stuff. Some companies are legally obligated to have this section, but they cannot require you to answer. So you are more than welcome to choose, prefer not to disclose if that's what you're most comfortable with. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. One final thing is another handout that we provided you guys was a sample, just generic job application. It can be really helpful just to spend the time before you start this whole process, filling out that job application. That way you have the information that you can refer to. You have the dates when you were employed at certain positions, you know the titles, you've got your supervisors, you've got the address for the employer, that kind of stuff. So keeping that in with all of your job search records is helpful, just to be able to pull it out and refer to it, whether you're filling out an application in person with pencil and paper or if you're doing it online. So again, we provided that just for your reference. It's not something that you have to do, but it is helpful to do that. Okay, next poll is talking about cover letters. Let's see, poll 2. So it's a true or false question. You can have one standard cover letter that you use for all of your job applications. True or false? Okay, that was an easy one. Everyone finished that quickly. It is absolutely false. Sometimes you can have a generic resume that you can, like in my case, I have an HR or human resources resume and I have a higher ed resume. So I don't tend to fiddle with those too much depending on the positions that I'm applying for. But where I do fiddle with it a lot is the cover letter. You want to be sure that your cover letter is written specifically for the position that you are applying for. So yes, you can have a generic outline, but you want to be sure that each time you're writing a cover letter, it is catered and tailored specifically to the position that you are sending it out for. Let's see here. So sidebar here, many of the online applications and the job boards that you'll use will say that cover letters are optional. Just my 2 cents, I would say go ahead and do it. It shows that you're thorough, that you pay attention to details. It also provides just an additional writing sample, and it's just professional. It's what should be expected. When you're applying for a job, you should have a resume and a cover letter that go out together. To me, they're like peanut butter and jelly. So that's just my 2 cents. There are others that will disagree with me, but that's my opinion. I'm just going to share that now. Your cover letter, again, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, just like we didn't with resumes, but just have an understanding of, there is a basic format and there is basic content that you want to be sure that's included. Generally speaking, there's 3 main paragraphs for a cover letter. Sometimes that can spread out into 4 or 5. So, I mean, if you're not at that 3-paragraph format, don't panic. But you also, again, want to be concise with this. So don't write or send in a 2-page flowery cover letter. Generally speaking, your first paragraph is simply going to be what position that you're applying for, why you think you're a good fit for it, where you learned about it, that kind of stuff. The second and potentially third paragraphs are where you really get into the nitty gritty. So, you've analyzed these job descriptions and the job positions that you're posting for or you're applying for, and you're able to pick out those keywords. So you know what skills they want, you know what educational background they want you to have, and they know what type of experience they want you to have. And you're basically just going to regurgitate that to them in this cover letter. You're going to say, you're looking for a candidate that has X, Y, and Z. And this is how I've developed X, Y, and Z. And these are my accomplishments. And these are the skills that I'm good at. And this is where I excel. So it's really a good opportunity for you to really put your best foot forward and lay it out for them. This is why you want to hire me. I check all your boxes. Aren't I great? Don't you want to look at my resume? And don't you want to call me in for an interview? So that's really the purpose of your cover letter. Your closing paragraph is really short and sweet. You're just reaffirming your interest and your fit for the position. And you're going to close with what I say is a confident call to action. So say, I look forward to speaking with you rather than I hope to hear from you. It's subtle, but it kind of makes a difference. Completely lost what I was going to say. You can be assertive in this statement and say, if I don't hear from you within 2 weeks, I'll call and follow up. That would be another confident call to action, another assertive statement. But regardless, you want to close with your interest and your excitement about the opportunity and how you're looking forward to that next step, which would be the interview. So all of these resumes and all of these cover letters and applications have been sent out, and you're getting phone calls and you're getting interviews lined up. Woo-hoo. But now what? What's the next step and the final step in this job search process? How do you prepare for the interview? Again, complete 1-hour session could be dedicated to interviewing. So we're going to cover the highlights here. Starting with researching the employer. You want to know as much as you can about the company that you could potentially be working with. So simple stuff like, where they're headquartered, the number of employees, chain of command in the organization, who you might report to, what they sell, what they produce, what they do, what they're known for. Look at their mission statement, their vision statement, see if they're in the news recently for upcoming research that they've done, or maybe they've got funding or they've partnered with a new organization. Just find that kind of stuff out. So when you're talking to people in the interview, you can casually drop this stuff into the conversation, and it's going to let them know that you're interested, you're committed to this, you spent the time to do the research. So lots of different ways you can research the employers. Remember, we already talked about Glassdoor for kind of insider stuff and company culture and those types of things. But going to the website and just reading the About Us section is a really simple place to go. Again, you can just do a Google search and type in the company name, see what pops up. Go to your LinkedIn account and see what they are sharing on their employer or their company page. So just spend that time exploring all these different areas and learn as much as you can about the company, about the employer itself. Then you want to prepare for the actual interview itself. So there's tons of questions that are possible. Obviously, I can't share with you exactly which questions the recruiter is going to ask you, but we did provide you with a list of, I don't know, 10-ish common questions that you could think about and prepare for. From the tell me about yourself to, your strengths and weaknesses, to the little bit trickier questions, those behavioral based questions where, tell me about a time when you failed to meet a goal, or tell me about a time when you didn't get along with a teammate. How did you resolve it? Those questions can really catch you off guard if you're not prepared for them. So it's important to spend some time. Again, go to Google. Google is your friend. Google behavioral based interview questions and spend some time reading some articles about that and learning what you can about those questions, why the employers ask the questions. In a nutshell, it's because the idea is that how you've handled difficult situations in the past is going to predict how you may handle similar situations in the future. So what you've learned from it, what your problem solving skills are like, that kind of thing, that's useful information to an employer. What I find is helpful is you'll see the different kind of categories, if you will, for these behavioral based questions. And again, it's going to be things like problem solving and conflict resolution and time management and, I don't know, planning, those types of things. So when you have a good feel for what those broad categories are, you can start to think about your life experiences and your work experiences and your experiences in the classroom and come up with different scenarios that you can prepare to address all of these different areas. So it's, again, very helpful and very worthwhile to spend the time preparing and practicing some of these interview questions beforehand, so you're not caught like a deer in the headlights going, oh, shoot, I don't know how to respond to that. One thing that I did want to mention, we have a tool called Big Interview at Blackhawk, and it's available for anyone to use. You can access it through our website. I'll put it in our chat at the end, and there's a 4-digit code that you need in order to access the site. So I'll share that as well. But it's a really cool tool because it has a series of short videos that you can watch about different interview questions, how to prepare for questions, how to respond to different questions. There's different playbooks, they call them, that you can go through. So if you're a career changer, or if you've got a gap on your resume and you're not sure how to respond to that, or if you're a new college grad, there's all these different playbooks where they've put together videos that you can watch to help prepare for those types of scenarios that you may encounter. And then it also allows you to respond to questions, record yourself, and kind of see the different mannerisms, see how you maintain eye contact, see how many ums and ers you use when you're responding. I'm really bad about that, but it's helpful to take advantage of that tool. So again, I will share that with you here in just a few minutes when we wrap up. And the last thing I wanted to say is be sure that you do prepare your own questions when you're going into an interview. I've been on several interview committees where at the end, we present to the person who we're interviewing, do you have any questions for us? And folks look at there, nope, you've answered everything, I'm good. It doesn't really show a lot of interest and commitment to the process. It's all part of the game you've got to play. So again, when you're doing that company research, jot down some notes, jot down some questions, and write them out, take them with you when you go on to the interview. Because when they ask you that, and they will ask you that, you can say, yep, as a matter of fact, I do. Do you mind if I refer to my notes? And you can whip out your little portfolio, refer to your questions, and then get through them all. And it's going to help you get a better feel for what you're getting yourself into and make sure that you're getting all of your concerns addressed ahead of time. I think that was it on that. We are going to talk real quickly about the different types of interviews that you may encounter. We'll focus on these 3 for today. A phone interview typically is going to be more of like a screening interview, just to touch base, just to go over some real basic questions so they can get an initial feel. They like what they saw on their resume, and now they want to just talk to you and make sure that you are someone that they want to bring in for this next step. So typically that's the way they are. They're used as a kind of a screening or a next step. However, they can be very, very detailed. Case in point, when I was still in grad school and was applying for my first job out of that program, I had a phone interview with a school down in Georgia. I lived in Ohio, and that interview was a good 2.5 hours long on the phone. So it was a doozy. So you want to be prepared for either one. But again, generally speaking, phone interviews will be shorter. Then we're going to be talking about either an in-person interview or a virtual interview. It's about a 50-50 split anymore as to what you're going to encounter, maybe more of a 40-60 still. But regardless, there's different things that you want to prepare for when you're going either in person or virtually. For both, you want to be sure that you're dressed professionally. Even for virtual, even if you're on a screen, you want to dress the part, look the part. Mentally, it gets you in that right mindset. You know, I'm here for an interview. I'm dressed professionally. I can do this. It helps mentally prepare and psych yourself up for that. Also, employers are still going to be able to see what you're wearing, even if it's only the shoulders up, they're going to know. So Jason Sudeikis at the Golden Globes last week, 2 weeks ago, wore a yellow hoodie. And I was just appalled that he did that because it's still an awards show. You won a Globe, for heaven's sakes, wear the tuxedo. So dress professionally, whether you're in person or virtual. For an in-person interview, make sure that you allow yourself 15 minutes or so ahead of time so you know that you're in the right place. You have time to go into the bathroom and freshen up and get a drink of water and make sure that you've got all your notes pulled together. You'll want to take, again, some sort of a portfolio with you where you can keep track of your references, your resume. Take a paper and the pen so you can write some notes throughout the interview. And you'll also have your prepared list of questions with you. And it's also a handy place where you can tuck business cards, because at the end, you're going to want to ask for business cards of the folks that you meet with, so you can follow up with a thank you note. For virtual interviews, same thing with that showing up a little early, but I'm going to take it a little bit farther and say the day or two before your interview, test out your tech beforehand. Make sure that there's nothing that you have to download. Make sure that your tech works. Make sure that your microphone and your camera's working. You don't have any glitches, and that everything's going to work out fine. That gives you time to troubleshoot. So if you do turn on and you find out that your mic's not working or whatever, that gives you a little bit of time to go out and buy new equipment if need be, or play with your settings or whatever the case may be. With virtual interviews, you'll also want to be sure that you limit distractions. So the assumption would be that you would be doing this from home. Perhaps there's other people who you live with who are also home at the same time. So there's going to be those background noises, whether it's TVs or dogs barking or just people carrying on conversations in the background. Ideally, you want to find a place that has a door so you can go in, close that door, and just focus on what's going on. It's very helpful to let folks know, I'm going to be in an interview. Please do not disturb me for the next 60 minutes or whatever you anticipate the interview will last. The flip side of that is we've all been dealing with this virtual environment for the past year now. So we're all used to seeing the cat run across the keyboard or hearing the dog bark in the background. So don't let it throw you if something does happen. 9 times out of 10, people are going to react appropriately and smile and give you the grace in that situation. It could even be an icebreaker. So don't sweat it, don't freak out, but do try to limit those distractions when and where possible. And I started with negative stuff with the unemployment rates and all that, and I'm ending with don'ts, which is another negative. So I apologize for that, but they're really not negative don'ts. Just some things to keep in mind. Don't forget to send a thank you note. So whoever it is that you're talking with, whoever spends the time to interview you, get their contact information and follow up with that note. It can be a handwritten thank you. It can be an emailed thank you. Doesn't matter. Just be sure you do it and be sure you get it out. If you know that they're on a quick turnaround, so at the end of the interview, they say, we hope to make a decision by the end of the week, you want to do an email thank you rather than a handwritten one, because it might not get there in time. But thank yous are very important. And like 1 out of 10 job seekers do a thank you note. So again, it's one more opportunity for you to keep your name in the recruiter's mind. And it's just, again, kind of checking that list of things that are just appropriate to do during an interview. So follow up, send those thank yous. Don't get discouraged. Like we said at the beginning, job searching is very, very stressful. And just in the time that we're living right now, there's just a lot of stuff going on, and it can be depressing. It can be stressful. It can be disheartening, but try not to let yourself get discouraged. So find yourself a cheerleader, whether it's your partner or your spouse or a best friend or a parent or just somebody who's going to be there and you know who will be supportive of you when you find yourself getting down. If you don't have that cheerleader, connect with me. I'm sharing you my contact information at the end, and I would be happy to give you a pep talk before all of your interviews. And I'm serious about that. Um, Next is don't rely just on one method or one source. I talk to so many people who say, you know, well, I created an account on LinkedIn or on Indeed, and I set it up so I get the job postings emailed to me weekly. And, you know, I've been searching for 9 months now. I haven't gotten anything. It's like, well, you can't just use that one source. You have to take advantage of all of the sources that are out there. So you need to do those online applications, but you also need to, you know, keep your eyes open and look for those job wanted signs in the windows, and look at the newspaper every once in a while and talk to people. Use that network that you have. Get on LinkedIn and change your profile picture so you have that banner that says open to work. There's lots of different things that you can do for your job search. So don't rely just on one method. And the last note there is don't wait on just one company. You may have had an interview and you thought it was the best interview ever, and you are just so confident that you're going to get this job, but 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks have gone by and you're still not hearing anything, but you're starting to get contacts from other employers wanting you to come in for an interview. Don't turn down those interviews. Still carry on with that job search. Sometimes you can use a second job offer as leverage for that one dream company that you really want to work for. And it kind of can spur them along a little bit if they're taking their sweet time to issue an offer. But don't rely just on that one company. You may think it was the best interview ever. They may have had a completely different opinion. So take advantage of all of the opportunities that are extended to you. If you are given the chance to interview with a company, take advantage of it. I believe that is it. So I've shared my contact information here, and I also put Teresa's contact information. She's on the call as well today to answer any questions that may come up. If there's any questions that we have right now, I'm looking at chat and I don't think I see anything, but do feel free to throw something in chat. We've got 2 more minutes. I know I'm not a quick talker, but let's see, let me stop sharing. So if